What's up, glitches? The first story in today's video is called I Met Death 3 Times, and then we're going to be reading 9 more weird, unexplainable stories sent in by fans. So sit back, grab a snack, and let's get weird. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I finally decided to be brave and send this story in, as I hope the ending will give people some peace of mind for what lies beyond this life. This is a long one, so I guess I should say you're welcome since we love long ones. Yes. Trigger warning for comas and human and animal death. All my life, I've been surrounded by death and have always known when someone was going to die before it happens. It used to create a lot of anxiety for me, relevant at the end. A lot of people died early on in my life, and because of that, death and mortality became more of a normal event in my life. In an 18-month span, 4 people in my family died, including my brother and his fiance, in separate events. Because of that and other trauma, I was diagnosed with CPTSD, and therapy really helped. It wasn't until I met death that I really came to terms with the losses. Back in early 2019, I had trouble falling asleep one night and then felt someone in my room moving around. My husband was fast asleep next to me, so there's no way it was him, and our cats aren't full-grown people moving about. Plus, they're lazy, LOL. I felt someone in there and heard a voice saying, "Check your phone." The moment I got up, my sister called. My dad was on his way to the hospital as he had fallen into a coma. Immediately, I got out of bed and my husband and I rushed up there. I spent a week sitting in the hospital waiting for something to happen. The doctor said that there was a 1 in a million chance for my dad to wake up, and they were expecting serious mental deficits. One night I was getting ready for bed and I did a quick tarot reading regarding the situation. To my surprise, it said not to worry and that things would be okay and my dad would come out of this healthy. I usually believe the cards, but things were so bad that they were talking about options, if you get what I mean, so I was thinking how that couldn't possibly be right. So I went to sleep that night, and when I started to dream, I immediately recognized that I wasn't in a normal dream, as I've had prophetic dreams my entire life. I was in an all-black space, as if out of time itself, and I saw a faint glow in the distance. I approached it, and I came face to face with a white dragon with 4 claws on each hand. White and the number 4 is associated with death in some cultures. I felt complete respect and awe for this being, but there was no fear, and I immediately knew I was face to face with death. Death was fast asleep, and when I communicated with them, it was all mentally, as if they could read my mind. I asked Death to please wake up my dad, and when Death opened their eyes, they looked at me and understood. Death said nothing, but I knew they were going to do something. Death got up and flew away, and then I was out of the dream, and my dreaming became normal again. That morning, I woke up and felt different. There was something different in the air. I asked my sister if we should bring something that my dad likes, and she said, "What's the point? He's not awake." I found it odd that I even offered, because the entire week I said it was absolutely not going to make a difference if we brought these things to the hospital. I was the practical one, so bringing something was really strange for me to propose. We got to the hospital, and as we were sitting there, my sister said something and my dad moved. We got to the hospital at 9 a.m. and he was awake at 10 a.m. Even more than that, there were no cognitive deficits. He was completely awake, recovering physically, and entirely functional mentally. The doctor said that this was impossible and this never happens. Everyone in the ICU was celebrating. That's how much they were planning for the opposite to happen. Even the janitorial staff came by to congratulate us. It was literally a miracle. Later, my dad said an old man with a cane and a lantern came to him and gave him a choice to stay or go. I believe this was Death honoring my request and going to my dad to offer him a choice. Later on, my dad often said he smelled death following him, and I believe that what he didn't say was that he was on borrowed time. You'll see why. 10 months later, my dad went into a coma again. The night that he did, I had a dream that Death was working on something very intensely while another dragon came over to me and cradled me, telling me that everything would be okay. It was during the new moon, where it was said to be a moment of huge, substantial life changes. This is also right as COVID was hitting, so the new moon heralded in a warning that COVID would happen, but that's a different story. I woke up and immediately knew that my dad was back in the hospital. The same thing had happened, but this time it was different. I knew that his soul had left his body already, but his body was being kept alive. Death had returned to claim my dad's spirit. Later found out that my dad was going to have surgery on December 27th, and he was terrified, so he postponed the surgery. He had never been terrified of surgery before. I think he knew that he only had the extra 10 months with his family and was desperate to stick around. But death only grants us reprieves and time on their schedule, not our own. My dad passed on December 27th. After this, I had a sensation of peace despite my grief of not having my father in my life anymore. Death is not something to be feared, nor is it something to run from. If you face death with respect and awe, not fear, death will be kind and respectful. Death appears in a form we are comfortable seeing and can recognize them. Man, woman, dragon, possibly a potato, it is all the same entity, and I found a peace knowing that death had been there to comfort me in my moments of grief. The next time I met death was when I had a kitten about 6 months later, Shoto, who was sadly diagnosed with FIP. We had him only 47 days, and his decline happened so fast that we were unable to get the off-label medication to try to treat him. It would simply take too much time to get it in. It left my husband and I devastated. A couple days after Shoto passed, I had a prophetic dream that I was in the same black space. Shoto came out of the darkness and we went on a walk together, communicating about how he was grateful to have us in his life and how he knew we were the best people for him because we loved him so fiercely. I was crying and telling him that we loved him and made sure that he was okay on the other side. He was very happy, healthy, and wanted to repay us for the immense amount of love he had experienced in a short time. I tell people that for every day we had him, we loved him as much as if that day were a year. When we came to stop, there was a wall of darkness in front of me. It was the veil, and Shoto had to go back. I could feel death on the other side calling him back, and I knew that death had let Shoto come to say his goodbyes. Before he went back, he communicated to me, "Go back to the shelter. There's a black kitten with white paws waiting for you. Her name is Mina." And then he said goodbye and hopped back across where death and he went home. I woke up and told my husband that we absolutely had to go to the shelter. He wasn't sure he was ready, but I told him, just trust me. We went there, and there we saw so many kittens that it was dizzying. But as we were looking around, my husband kept getting his heels nipped at by a kitten. He picked her up and said, "What about this one?" Sure enough, it was a black tuxedo kitten with white paws, the only black kitten there. I held her in my arms and she immediately fell asleep and claimed me as hers. We adopted her, and on the way back, I suggested a bunch of bad names for her. They were really awful. And then I said, "What about Mina?" Naturally, the name stuck. Mina is a happy and healthy 3-year-old cat now who is extremely attached to me and has bonded with me very strongly. I told my husband about the dream I had where Shoto came to me after we got her at the shelter, and he understood that it was just something that was meant to be. Shoto had given us this gift to help us with our grief and to learn that it's okay to love again. Ever since these experiences, I have helped family cross over and have felt peace with the world, knowing that death and life are both out there. They are kind and loving, and if we do not fear death, we can be assured that death will be kind to us. Despite these tragic events happening, I have found myself better able to grieve my lost loved ones and know that someday I will cross over and be with my beloved kitten and family again. Thank you for reading my story, and I hope this brings some comfort to people to know that we are not alone and death is nothing to fear, but something to embrace as a natural part of the cycle of life. What a sad but heartwarming story at the end. Thank you so much for sharing. That was beautiful. This one is called "My Son Has Memories from Past Life and Heaven." I love these. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. This is a story about my 3-year-old son. Let's call him Tom. One day I was feeding my dogs breakfast and doing normal morning chores, and Tom says, "Hey, Mom, did you know I used to be big like you?" I asked him what he meant. He repeated, "I used to be big." I asked him how he was bigger if he started out as a small baby. Tom said, "I was big when I was a doctor. I can't wait to be big again." So I'm thinking he's using his imagination now and just being a cute little person. So I asked if he helped people. He said, "Mom, don't be silly. Don't you remember when you were sick, when you were a baby and I took care of you?" This was freaky because he doesn't know this, but I was hospitalized from a severe case of the flu as a baby. I just stared at him and tried to decide if this felt like a made-up story or something more. I asked him if he was already big, then why is he small now? He said, "I don't know what happened. I fell down and went to sleep, and then I went up through the ceiling and I woke up in the playground in the sky." I told him that's silly. How could there be a playground in the sky? Tom goes, "Oh, Mommy, the playground in the sky is so, so beautiful, and everyone is always happy and never sad. I can't wait to go back, and I want you to come too." I can only imagine he was trying to describe heaven with his limited terminology. He also is very obsessed with John and Sarah. We don't know any John or Sarah, though. He tells me all the time about his friend John that he used to go to school with. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and he has never been to school. He's only 3. He tells me that he misses riding the bus with John. He told me once that he's so happy that John and him made up after the big fight that they had on their way home from school. He misses John and Sarah, but he says he knows he will see them again. He makes every toy or stuffed animal Sarah. Everything is Sarah. He loves Sarah. I don't know much about her, but I don't dig because I don't want him to make up stuff to be able to answer my questions. I am confident that this is not his first life. I 100% agree with you. This is not his first life. He is definitely talking about past lives. And I love that he was your doctor when you were a baby and then he died and came back as your son. He's part of your soul family. That's so cool. Thank you so much for sharing this story. This one is called Haunted Airbnbs. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I love your videos, and every time I watch them, I think of a few stories that I have no explanation for, but what happened yesterday made me have to share. Sorry this will be long, but I love the long ones. So I am an Airbnb cleaner, and this one particular house is 3 stories, probably 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. It's big, but I clean it myself. In this house, the keys to the restocking closet are in the basement's water closet. Every time I open the door to the water closet or to the bedroom right next to it, I just feel like something is watching me. But I've been cleaning this house for so long, I've just accepted it. I always leave the door open though. Though it freaks me out, I feel better about it being open for some reason, but it's always all the way open. Sometimes the bedroom door will seem like it opens or closes by itself, but I'm constantly moving around and not super paying attention, so I usually just chalk it up to air pressure. I always keep the room's doors/lights on until the room is finished and then close the door to check it off in my brain. I always lock the door to the house when I come in and have my headphones in while listening to a podcast or YouTube videos. In the past, I've heard some things like cabinet doors or something falling, at least that's what I tell myself, and just feel watched. So one time I said, "Hey, I know this is your space, but I have to be here to clean. I'm just making sure it looks good and I'm not here to bother you, so don't bother me." After that, nothing really happened for a while and I didn't feel like I was being watched as much until yesterday. I was at the house for a few, usually 6 hours total, and had been on all the floors at some point. Got the keys from the water closet as per usual, all the doors and lights on. I'm switching the laundry, which is on the opposite side of the house on the main floor from the downstairs water closet. As I'm loading the dryer, I hear a big thud through noise cancellation. Thinking maybe the broom fell over or a cleaner fell off the counter maybe, so I looked over and nothing fell. It was weird, but I kept cleaning. A little bit later, I go downstairs, and from the railing of the stairs, you can see half of the door of the water closet blocked by a wall, and there's a hallway directly behind the wall that the water closet faces. I always look over there expecting to see something because it's creepy, but there's nothing over there. Except the door to the water closet was all the way shut and latched. Remember, I always leave it all the way open. That's when I realized what the big thud was. The door had to literally have been slammed shut, not just an air pressure shut. I wouldn't have heard an air pressure shut through the whole house through my headphones while the washing machine was going right next to me. I still had to clean the whole basement, so I was checking over my shoulders the whole time, but I only feel like that downstairs. I just keep my headphones in because I don't want to hear anything else while I was finishing. But I feel like I heard more things after that, but nothing explainable, and I still had headphones in, so I could have misheard stuff. The door, however, was not misheard. It was very much heard throughout the house and the headphones. So anyway, that was weird. Another story was from a different Airbnb. The people had checked out the day before, and the checkout list at this place had guests load the dishwasher and start a load of laundry. Side note, with all the drama about Airbnb's cleaning fees, I get it. I greatly appreciate when people start the dishwasher and a load of laundry, but I get that you're on vacation, so if people don't do it, it's not the end of the world. I'm a cool cleaner, LOL. Anyways, I couldn't clean it until the day after they checked out, and no one was checking in, so I could go the day after. I'd been at the house a few hours, and this house has 2 full kitchens, one upstairs and one downstairs. Downstairs kitchen seemed like it's all older appliances that they replaced with newer appliances on the main floor. Hardly anyone uses the downstairs kitchen, so when I saw a green light on the dishwasher, I thought, oh, maybe they had a lot of dishes and they loaded both dishwashers. So I opened the dishwasher and steam comes billowing off of it. It had just finished washing, but no one was there for like 27 hours. No dishes in there either. It's an older model, maybe early 2000s, even late 90s, so I don't know if there's a delay start for 24 hours, but it had me baffled. The property manager doesn't come to the house unless I tell him something is wrong or something needs restocking that day, or if someone is checking in that day. In that case, they don't come until right before check-in at 4 p.m. It was only noon, maybe 1. I told my properties manager about it and we were both so confused. I still don't know how to explain that. Thanks for reading. Thank you so much for sharing. There's no way that that door closed from just the wind because it was also latched. It was not only closed, it was latched, you said. I think it's great that you used your words and it kind of left you alone for a little bit. The second one with the dishwasher, that was my first thought was like, okay, maybe it was a delayed start, but the delayed start in dishwashers are like a couple of hours. They're not 24 hours. So I don't know. That's kind of weird. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. This one is called Neighbor's Haunted House. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi! I absolutely love your videos. I wouldn't say this is a glitch, but it's definitely creepy. It's pretty long. My apologies. So for a little background, I live in a historical neighborhood in SoCal. My house was built in 1904. Oh my God, that is so old. My neighbor's house was built just a few years after mine. My parents moved in our house in 1997, and my neighbors moved in about 4 years later. There are many ghost stories that have been told about that house over the years since my neighbors moved in. My neighbors Eric and Susie went on a vacation and had 2 of their friends, the friends were dating, stay a couple nights to watch their dogs. The man was downstairs on an important business call and he heard a really loud stomping and walking around. The girl walks in the house from the backyard after smoking a cigarette and the man was in shock because he thought that she was upstairs. They walked upstairs and saw the blinds on the balcony door window swaying, and like people do in movies, they asked, "If there's something here, show me a sign." The blinds flung up in the blink of an eye. The couple left with the dogs and haven't returned to the house since. Inside the pantry, there is a small door. I know it already sounds creepy. Yes, it does already sound creepy. Why is there a door in the pantry? A lot of things tend to go missing in this house, and anytime they would go missing, the items would always end up in the door. What is in the door, though? If you open the door, what is in the door? Is it another room, or is it just like a small little thing? Susie even told me this story herself. She had a matching jewelry set. 2 necklaces, 1 necklace longer than the other, a bracelet, and a pair of earrings. The whole setup went missing. The whole set went missing for months, and she checked in the door and there was nothing there. She looked everywhere around her house and couldn't find it after she had just bought the set. Months and months go by, and when she came home from work, the set was placed in perfect circles on her bed. The necklaces were set so perfectly, one inside the other, with the bracelet and the earrings placed perfectly inside the bracelet. Eric and Susie had 2 boys after this, and Eric was scared that whatever spirit was in the house was going to harm his children. So one day he screamed, "If you ever fuck with my children, I will burn this house down to the ground." For better understanding, when you walk into their house, the staircase is directly in front of you and halfway up the stairs is a bathroom. And if you keep going up, straight ahead is the balcony door, to the right is their son Jake's room, and to the left is their son Gunner's room. To the left of the front door is the parents' room. To the right of the front door is their living room. When sitting on the couch, you can see the bathroom up the stairs. One day in 2020, Jake and his best friend are sitting on the couch watching TV when they see a shadow pass from Jake's room to Gunner's room. They looked at each other and both thought that it was probably just one of the dogs. Both of the dogs were lying on the floor by the couch, and Jake said that it's probably just their cat, DJ. Jake looked out the window to the front yard, and DJ was laying in the grass outside sleeping. They called me and asked me to come over to my house. About a year goes by, and their family had me dog sit as they went on family vacation. I'm on the couch with both of the dogs when I get a weird chill on the back of my neck, and I felt the need to look up. I saw a shadow pass by from Jake's room to Gunner's room, and my heart started to race. I also just thought, it's probably DJ, just trying to calm myself down. I start to look around, and DJ is downstairs in the parents' room. I pretty much froze in fear, considering this was my first paranormal encounter. I got up, leaving the dogs because I was so scared. I will never forget about that. I haven't dog sat since that day, and I get chills anytime I walk by that house. I don't understand why people in these situations aren't cleansing their houses or trying to get rid of these things. They're just like living with them, and everyone is too terrified to go over there. Sounds like your neighbor's house is a big nope. Thank you so much for sharing your story. This one is called 1960s Postcard Glitch. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi! I'm a big fan of your videos and got reminded of something that happened to me in 2019, which no one has ever been able to explain. So I was emptying out my pajama drawer. I just have the basic white Malm IKEA drawers. I had them for about a year, and I periodically went through my drawers/wardrobe just to make sure that I was keeping them clean and had nothing to donate. On a day in November 2019, I went to look for a pajama set, pulled the set out, and a postcard from 1968, pictures attached, pictures, fell out of this Primark pajama top, which I had worn before too, so I had not received the set with the postcard, just in case anyone would have thought that. This is weird, as our house was completely knocked down and built back up only a few years prior. No one really goes in my drawers apart from my parents doing the washing, who had no idea about it, and no one in my family goes by the names on the postcards or knows anyone by the names or has even been to the place the postcard came from. The postcard was addressed to E.M. Kenny. My family names are Wright and Turton, and it was addressed to someone in St. Albans, UK, 3 hours away from where I live in Yorkshire, and was talking about a holiday in Wales. I have never been to Wales or St. Albans. To make this even weirder, there's a date stamped on the postcard and a very old, authentic stamp from the time it was written. To this day, no one has any idea of where it came from, who the people are, or just anything about how it got there. We tried searching up the names, but it didn't come to anything. Again, love your vids and hope you enjoyed my weird glitch story. We need to check out these pictures. Hold on. Okay, so this is the postcard. Dear Graham, having a lovely time. The weather is beautiful. We have seen some lovely views and have been up some very tall mountains. One was 3,000 feet tall. We are all fit and well enjoying the holiday. We are now heading for the Welsh Valleys. Hope you are having a good holiday. Does it say Jewel? Julie, Paul, Tom, and Ethan? Who are these people? And then look at this stamp right here. Look at the stamp, Berkshire. 11:45 a.m., August 29th, 1968. Mrs. E.M. Kenny, St. Albans Hurst, but 1968, where did that come from? This is a really cool story. I don't understand where that came from. If this was like a newer house, like they rebuilt the house just a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden this random postcard, and they have no idea who it is. It's not like a relative or anything, just this random postcard. Did that pop in from another timeline? I don't know how else to explain it. What do you guys think? I need to hear in the comments. What do you think about this postcard glitch? Please let me know. Thank you so much for sharing the story. It was so cool. This one is called Wet Floor Sign Man. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I love watching your Glitch in the Matrix stories and sometimes share with a couple of clients of mine after their sessions. I'm a personal trainer. They love it too. I love it. So my story is more of a ghost story than a glitch in the Matrix, I think. When I was pregnant with my son over 20 years ago, my husband at the time and I bought a small house near my parents. The house was nothing special, but we were happy to just finally own our own home after years of apartment renting. I was home alone a lot with my baby while my husband, we'll call him Jay, was working. I always had a strange feeling of being watched, but I thought it was probably postpartum or mommy paranoia. After a while of living there, I remember sitting on my couch and seeing a black shadow in the hallway. The way the house was set up was the hallway was just like a small square or the size of a walk-in closet, and there was a bathroom in the middle and a bedroom on either side. I would see the shadow often, and sometimes it had the shape of a person. I know this sounds crazy, but I chalked it up to seeing things that weren't there. I convinced myself that it was a trick of the lights or headlights from a passing car, even though there weren't really any way for headlights to show up in that spot. Another key point, I never told Jay what I was seeing, or anyone else for that matter. I thought that I'd sound insane. We believe you. Fast forward to years later. My son was 3. Let's call him D. D comes out of his room one night and says, "Mommy and Daddy, I'm seeing something. It looks like the man on the wet floor sign at the store." The wet floor sign, you may know, has a black silhouette of a person on it. Jay and I looked at each other and then back at D. I quickly said, "It's nothing, D. It's just shadows from the headlights of cars going by. Don't worry." D went back to bed. Okay, so that's what you mean by the wet blind man. That's actually a very good way for a child to describe what they're seeing. As Jay and I return to our room, we are looking at each other puzzled. I say, "Do you need to tell me something?" Jay says, "I don't know. Do you need to tell me something?" Then we both admit that for 3 years, we've both seen the same thing that our son just described, a shadowy black figure in the hallway that does look like the wet floor sign man. I'm getting chills just typing this. Before you say my 3-year-old heard us talking and parroted something that we said, remember, I never told anyone what I saw, and that includes Jay. We didn't discuss it at all. We both thought it was explainable, and we explained it away in our heads so that we both could sleep at night. We're very logical people, and a ghost sounded completely illogical. Later, my mom also admitted that she had seen something similar while babysitting. So now, fast forward another year or so, we continue to live there. We tell ourselves it's fine. Even stranger occurrences start to happen. First, there's a smell in our bedroom. Now, at the time, I think it's not a big deal. 20 years later, I was reminded by my now adult son's girlfriend that a smell such as this one can be the sign of a demonic presence. So at that time, my dad and Jay both separately crawled through the crawl space under the house looking for a dead animal. We looked everywhere, inside the house and outside, and never found one. The smell was rancid, and we slept on an air mattress in our living room for 6 months. Yes, the smell lasted that long. Oh my God. Finally, when my son was about 5, and I also had a daughter at this point who was 3, my grandpa, who I was very close with, died suddenly. I was very distressed during this time. This was when the activity really ramped up. I've since read that these things can prey on the vulnerable and take advantage during hard times. Yes. First, Jay woke me up at 5 a.m. He always got up early for work, but he never woke me. He looked terrified. He told me that an icy cold finger touched his face. The look on his face was pure terror. Next, a few weeks later, he woke up to something biting or clawing him on the chest. I also experienced just an overall feeling of dread and being watched constantly. One night while we were trying to fall asleep, something tapped rapidly on my leg. I sat up and nothing was there. Then as I laid back down, something whispered loudly in my ear, "Hey." I started to cry and I whispered back, "Please leave me alone, you're scaring me." At one point, I was so afraid that I called a guy I previously worked with. I knew he had ghost investigation project. He interviewed me, made sure we didn't use drugs or have a mental illness, and he listened. He wanted to do an investigation, and I went as far as setting up the visit, but then chickened out about 2 weeks before. I just knew if they found something, I would never be able to sleep in the house again. Finally, we sold the house and moved away when my kids were about 5 and 7. I was so glad we were leaving, and while it wasn't the sole reason for moving, it definitely was one of the reasons. After the house sold, I went back to grab the sign for the real estate agent to make sure that we got everything out. I called Jay and said, "Do I need to go inside for any reason?" He said no. I was so glad. I drove away, and as I did, I had that feeling of being watched again. While this wasn't a dramatic haunting like a poltergeist, it really was quite terrifying to live through. Since moving, we've never experienced anything like it again, so I assumed that it didn't follow. After mine and Jay's divorce, I even moved into a house in another town that was built in 1915, and still nothing but good energy. Sometimes I think back and wonder if it was all in my head, but then I'm reminded that even my 3-year-old saw it. My son really wants to drive back and ask the current owner if they experienced anything, but I told him that's not the best idea. My mother to this day still says, there was something wrong with that house. There was definitely something in that house. The fact that you had that smell, that's definitely like a sign of a demonic presence. I don't know why it left. I wonder why the smell left. Clearly the presence didn't leave, but the smell left. I wonder why it was there in the first place. Was the smell and the sightings, were they connected at all to, because I see that you are divorced, to your relationship, like to the energy that was in the house in general for your relationship with your ex or anything like that? I wonder if it had anything to do with that. Either way, I'm glad you're out of there. I'm glad you're in another place, even though it's from 1915, but apparently it's good energy, so that's good. And thank you so much for sharing your story. This one is called There's Effing Aliens on the Roof. Hi, Tess. Hi. First of all, I love your storytelling and your voice. It's so soothing. Thank you. Okay, I have many stories, but this one takes the cake. This takes place in Yorba Linda, CA, 17 years ago. Let me start off by telling you that I've always believed and known that there are aliens and otherworldly things that visit our realm, and my family always thought I was crazy. We don't think you're crazy. We believe you. Also, that my mother is a diehard Christian and would never admit something crazy like paranormal or alien activity ever happened to her. But this time, she did. Ooh. We lived in suburb homes on a big hill that backs up to a huge national park. Oh, national parks are notoriously haunted. My parents lived on the top of the hill, and I moved in with my brother at his house that was off at the base of the hill. So we're literally a straight shot down the street from each other. One night, I'm in bed like normal and went to sleep. I had my wolf dog Sitka with me like I do every night. In the middle of the night, he woke me up with this crazy low growl that I've never heard before. I said, "What is it, boy?" He's staring out my window, growling. It's like 1 a.m. All of a sudden, I heard this claw-like sound on the roof and then more scratching from a different area. I was thinking it must be possums or raccoons or some sort of animal. No big deal. Then I heard a loud thud, followed by something running with 2 legs and claws across the roof. My dog is now looking up to the ceiling, growling. Now I'm curious as to what kind of animal this is. I take my dog outside with me in the backyard. We're looking up at the single-story roof lit up by the moon and streetlights. We should see something, but there's nothing there. I don't think much of it. I go back inside, grab a cigarette, and come back outside so my dog can do his business while I smoke. I'm sitting down, leaning on the back door under an overhang. My dog comes and lays next to me, and I'm just sitting there petting him, enjoying the moment. All of a sudden, my dog gets up really slowly and stands over me. His belly is over my right shoulder, his back legs behind me, and his front paws spread out in front of me with his head down. Mind you, he is a wolf dog, so he's huge, and they act much different from your everyday normal barking dog when something is not right. He isn't making a sound, but I now know something is out there, and he's protecting me from it. All of a sudden, I hear what sounds like bubbles popping, clicking and clucking above me. I then realize I'm hearing it from 3 different areas in 3 different tones coming from the roof. I'm listening to these weird sounds for a while, trying to figure out what the heck this is. Then I realize that I've heard this exact sound before. in that movie Signs, when the aliens are talking to each other on the baby monitor, my stomach dropped, my blood ran cold, and I booked it inside with my dog. I woke up my brother and told him, we have effing aliens on the roof. He called me crazy and of course didn't listen to me. I went back into my room and didn't sleep the rest of the night and didn't hear anything the rest of the night either. 6 a.m. rolls around and I start getting ready for work. I get a phone call from my mom. I'm thinking, well, that's weird. She never calls me and definitely not this early in the morning. I answer, hey, Mom. She replies, you'll never guess what happened to me last night. Not expecting anything crazy from her, I replied, bet I could beat it. She replies, no, I had 3 aliens in my room last night. The whole room was lit up with light coming from behind them. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. All I could do was repeat Jesus' name in my head, trying to fight whatever was keeping me from moving and screaming. They kept coming closer and closer to me where I could see age-like brown spots on their elongated heads, the reflection of myself in their large black glass-like eyes, their little mouths, and their skinny long arms and fingers coming towards me to touch me. I was so frightened and terrified, I was able to push out of the force keeping me down, sitting up and screaming Jesus' name right in their faces. They rapidly retracted and disappeared with the light. Your dad woke up scared half to death, and I told him everything that had just happened, and he said I needed to call you right away, but I wanted to wait until morning. I, of course, am beyond shocked at what I just heard, and I told her I believed her and proceeded to share my experience from the same night. We believe the aliens must have been working their way down the hill going house to house because her experience was at 11:30 p.m. and mine was around 1 a.m. This was enough proof for our whole family that aliens are very real. It makes it that much better, too, that you and your mom both had alien experiences the same night. That had to feel real good to have validation that it did happen, that you weren't dreaming that and you weren't crazy, and it had to be great validation for her as well. Thank God that your doggy was protecting you. That was such a good one. Thank you so much for sharing. This one is called Hotel Floor Glitch. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I just found your account. I knew immediately that I had to share this story with you. This happened in early 2020 before the pandemic hit. My family, which is me, 15 years old at the time, my younger sister, 9, and my parents were on a weekend trip to a big city a few hours from our house. We'd gone out and done stuff all day, then went back to the hotel. My parents had friends in the city and they decided to go out with them for some drinks, leaving my sister and I in the hotel room to have pizza and watch TV for a few hours. My sister was always fascinated by looking at all of the city lights at night. Since our hotel had 8 floors and we weren't staying on the top floor, I suggested that we take the elevator to the 8th floor and look out the window to get better view of the lights. She agreed, and we went. When the elevator door opened, the floor looked completely deserted. It looked like it was undergoing some kind of renovation. The carpets were all ripped out, the wallpaper was gone, etc. The weird thing was that it looked like it had been that way for a long time. There were no tools laying around or anything that would indicate that they'd been working on it at all recently. Also, there weren't any signs in the hotel that you'd normally see during that kind of repair/renovation, like, sorry for the mess, we're upgrading, or anything. My sister got kind of freaked out, I did too, and we went back to our floor and just watched TV. Our parents didn't get back until after she had fallen asleep. The next morning, I got into the elevator to meet my dad, who was already downstairs for the hotel breakfast. I decided to quickly go back to the 8th floor before heading to the lobby to see if there were people working since it was daytime. I hit the button for the 8th floor, and when the doors opened, the hallway looked completely normal. No renovations, no workers, no construction work, nothing, just a normal hallway. I haven't even gotten to the creepiest part yet. When I've told this story before, people think that I maybe dreamed it or hallucinated it or something, but there are 2 things that prove I didn't. Number 1, my sister, now 12 years old, remembers this the same way I do. Number 2, I took a picture of the floor that night that my sister and I saw. I'll attach the picture below. It's 100% real. I'm not creative enough to make something like this up. I still can't explain the story, and I haven't been back to the hotel since. Let's look at the picture. This is the picture, and this definitely looks like they're in the middle of construction. It looks like they're in like the demolition phase of the construction because like all of this stuff is all ripped up here and it looks like it has been patched up yet. The floor is all messed up. This door is off. That is so crazy that you have a picture of it and your sister. That's like 2 validations that is what it looked like when you went up at night, which is so weird. I don't know if maybe you went through some sort of portal or something into a different time or what happened. What do you guys think in the comments? Please let me know. This was a very cool story. Thank you so much for sharing. This one is called Glitches in the Matrix Are Real. Hello. Hi. I have a story which is 100% true. I am so glad your page exists to know I am not alone in having an absolutely mental thing happen. This is something that happened to me about 5 or 6 years ago, and I still cannot get my head around it or what it meant. It honestly blows my mind and my family's mind every time we talk about it. So I went to visit my mom and dad, who live about an hour and a half away from me. We were sitting in our living room, and down at my feet beside the sofa was my sister's laptop. On top of her laptop, there were 2 CDs, so I picked them up to look at them. One of them was like a dance compilation album, and the other was from an art I had never heard of, but there was a drawing of a blue man on the cover. My mom seen me pick them up and looking at them as she was sitting on the other sofa across the room. My sister was at work at the time, but I thought to myself, I'll ask her if I can borrow this dance CD when she gets home. Anyways, fast forward about an hour and we are in the kitchen having dinner. The door opens and it's my sister, who had just driven home from work. We were chatting just about general things when I asked her if I could borrow her CD that's in the living room. She says, "What CD?" I said, "The dance one that's in the living room on top of your laptop." She instantly looks completely shocked and replies, "It isn't in the living room, it's in my car." I said, "No, there's 2 CDs of yours in there, a dance one and one with the drawing of a blue man on it. Even Mom saw me looking at them." At this point, she's getting freaked out and she told me she was listening to the blue man one on her drive home in the car minutes earlier, as both of the CDs are currently in her car and have been all day. My mom then says, "That's impossible. I saw Lindsay," me, "pick them up and look at them in the living room." I'm honestly thinking to myself, what is going on? They can't be in her car if I have held them in my hands in this house and had my mom witness this. So my sister then proceeds to go out to her car and bring them in. As she was correct, they weren't in the living room. She had them all this time in her car. My mom and I were completely confused, freaked out, and just utterly baffled as to how this was possible. The most maddest thing about this was my sister told me the CDs had been in that exact same spot where I'd seen them the previous weekend, as she had been burning them onto her laptop. So that means that my mom and I had seen them at a time when they weren't actually there, but they had been a few days before. What does it mean? Did we go back in time? Honestly, it still just totally blows my mind to this day at what actually happened, completely beyond our understanding, I think. I mean, best guess, it's some sort of glitch in the Matrix. Maybe you guys hopped timelines. Maybe CDs hopped timelines for a minute. That's what I got. That's what I got. That is crazy. And again, we have your mom who also saw you looking at them. So we have validation from someone else. Super crazy. We got some good glitches in this video. Some good glitches. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing. This one is called Little People in the Woods. Hi. I've been binging your episodes and I thought I'd send some of my own if you're interested. Yes, we are. This is my 31 female story of when I saw little people. In 1999, I was 7 years old, playing in the woods with my friend Charlotte. For reference, our location was in Connecticut, US. We were standing at each end of a big log in the woods when I noticed movement in my peripherals. I tried focusing my periphery to catch a detailed look. I see similar movement often when we're in the woods, and it always just disappears, more like scatters before I turn to look at it. My heart skipped a beat when I could make out a group of little people looking up at me as well. I was frozen in the pose I was playing in. After a few seconds, I realized Charlotte had stopped narrating out play and was frozen in place as well, staring at me but focused on them. I'm pretty sure they were dressed because it didn't look like they were all naked. I could tell that they all knew that we were aware of them, and they dispersed as Charlotte moved her eyes. We didn't talk about it until we were in her house. We weren't afraid, just confused on our walk home. We wrote out what we saw before talking about it to see if we saw the same thing. Both of our descriptions were clothed and less than a foot for sure. One thing we were positive of was to mind our business and to not go searching, which is what our instinct would usually have been. Duh. We thought we found a colony of little people in the woods, but the fact that our reaction was to quietly leave and not even talk about it until behind closed doors, and still not even talk out loud, but write it, I'm not sure. I don't remember being too frightened. In fact, we kind of just accepted it and moved on with a new taste of what this world/universe is capable of. I watched Indian in the Cupboard later in life. Oh my God, great movie, great book, which reminded me of these little people, but I no longer saw them by then. Charlotte and I would talk about seeing things out of the corner of our eyes, but we could never figure out what it was. Although Charlotte was different, her and her dad were huge hippies, tire swing in the kitchen, no TV, and her imagination was so wildly magnificent that it made my mind radiate. I always thought that maybe her narration of our play was so powerful and energetic that we could manifest and see the same thing. Little people were never playing any parts in either of our imaginations. In fact, when we both confirmed what each other saw, we were kind of in awe that we've never even dreamt of tiny people in this universe. Doing some research and posting on Reddit, there's 2 creatures that seem to fit the description of what I saw the most. Okay, Nagamwasuk or Mechamwasuk. All right, let's look these up. Okay, so Nagamwasuk, it says they're mythological Native American little people from the folklore of the Passamaquoddy tribe. I'm very sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Although they are hideously ugly and don't like to be seen, the Nagamwasuk overall are benevolent. Okay, so they're good creatures. And the other one, Mechamwasuk. Mechamwasuks are quite short, about 3 feet tall, and have extremely hairy faces. They live in the woods outside human society. Overall, this doesn't sound so bad, but here's the kicker. Anyone the Mechamwasuk look directly at will sicken and die. Okay, so if you guys looked at each other, it's not the Mechamwasuk. And also the Mechamwasuk were about 3 feet tall, and you said that they were about 1 foot tall. And you weren't really scared of them, so I'm thinking it was maybe, if it was either of those two things, it was the Nagamwasuk, because those are the benevolent ones. This was actually a really cool story. What do you guys think in the comments? Let me know. Do you think it's one of these things? Do you think it's something else? But thank you so much for sharing your story. If you enjoy these stories and you want to see more in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you want to hang out with our glitch community, come join us in Discord. But if you want to keep it going right now, you can check out this video or this playlist.